tuned into the Entrepaidneur Sessions, the ultimate podcast for startup entrepreneurs.
All right, welcome to Entrepaidneur Sessions, the podcast. We're your hosts, Jennifer and Mario, and today we're excited about this edition of the podcast. The theme of our June series is Build a Blueprint to Your Dreams, and we've had some amazing episodes so far. But this episode's theme is called Get Out Your Dreams, How to Make Your Dreams a Reality. So since this is episode 5, we got to bring you something good. We can't just bring you just some fluff. We're going to bring you something good. So today we have a very, very special guest in the building. He is a 5-time Grammy Award-winning singer, songwriter, and one of the most heard voices in today's musical landscape. He's written, sung, and performed with Jay-Z, Nas, The Game, Rick Ross, and most notably his first cousin, Kanye West. He has been at Kanye's side for all of his solo projects from inception to completion. And most notably, he released his own album, King or Fool the Opera, Volume 1, and had some amazing features from John Legend, Stokely Williams, Raheem Devine, and had production from No ID, Hit Boy, and of course, Kanye West. So without further ado, let's welcome Tony Williams.
Hey, hey guys.
Welcome, Tony.
Okay.
Hey. So let's get it cracking.
Awesome. So how you doing, sir? How's your day going so far?
Man, it's doing amazing. It's going amazing. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Southern California. I can't complain, man.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on here today. Let's get right into it. So this month's theme is about building a blueprint to your dreams. So how did you get started in the industry to begin with?
Wow. Well, when you say in the industry, and if we're talking about entrepreneurs specifically, as it pertaining to entrepreneurship, spreads even wider than music industry. If you're saying by industry, if you mean entertainment industry, but if specifically, if we're talking about the entertainment business, how I got started was just basically off passion. When I say passion, music is something that not only would I and will I have done, I did do for free. So it was a passion. So it wasn't about anything that was money motivated or anything. It wasn't about survival. It was for love, which is what I would suggest, if I were asked, any endeavor into entrepreneurship. I think for me, the most important thing is passion. And so yeah, basically I was from a very musical family. But I was also a writer. So it kind of, at that time, first of all, I start probably even going back further than that. I remember my 4th grade teacher told me that she said, "You're going to be a writer one day." I had no idea in what capacity, but it stuck with me. Fast forward 7 years later, my math's off, but first year of college after 4th grade, I'm in the journalism school at the University of Oklahoma. So fast forward a couple of years, and so, I guess my career took off at a juncture where musicality or music, a passion for music and a skill set of writing cross-sected. And so lots of detail and dynamic in this particular story that I won't go into for the sake of time on this particular interview, and I've actually gone into it on numerous and countless interviews. But I had left the University of Oklahoma. We're talking about 1980, a long time ago. Long time ago, 1980s, 85. And I'm living in Los Angeles. I'm enrolled at the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising in Los Angeles. And some friends of mine that I had grown up with back in Oklahoma had a couple of years ago signed a record deal with Capitol Records, had gone through the terms of their contract, was not renewed. The band split up. Half of the band moved to LA. and it was a half of the band that did not have the lead singer. That side of the band stayed back. So it was a group split after they lost the record deal. And so at that time, they called me and asked me, they said, hey, we moved to LA. We want to put the band back together, pursue another record deal, but we don't have a lead singer, and they were friends of, I used to, hang out at all their rehearsals, go to all their gigs, and they just kind of knew me as a musical guy. And they offered me a position to be the lead singer in that band. In that band were some other artists that are still currently very relevant in the music business. One being Chucky Booker. A lot of people may or may not remember him. He had a ride during the 90s. He produced all the Troop stuff. He had also a notable solo career, and currently, and for many years to this point, is the musical director for Lionel Richie. Another guy in that band, Ron Spearman, who is a solo independent artist as in his own right, but for many years has been a member of, is a P-Funk All-Star, or has been a member of Parliament Funkadelic. And so we all started out, we were the three guys that filled out the new portion of that band, putting it back together back in that particular time. So yeah, it was just it kind of fell in my lap. Fast forward, we weren't successful as far as getting another record deal, but it kind of got my wheels turning. And so soon after that band broke up, I started putting my own bands together and honing my skills as a singer, songwriter, and producer. So that was kind of my entry into the marketplace.
That's awesome.
Long story. I'm sorry. I'll tell long stories.
It's not long. There's a journey before it all goes down.
It's been
very important. It's called, and I call it's a journey, but we could also refer to it as process. A lot of people like to skip over process, and I'm a very process-oriented person. So yes, lots of building blocks, and to be successful in any endeavor that you do, where you're dependent upon your own self to establish a foundation and walls and a ceiling to make a complete building.
Preach.
Process.
Preach. I'm gonna go off. I have a random question right now, but there's something that you said, and I think this is true, because sometimes when people think of people who work in creative or artists, they don't think of artists as entrepreneurs, but artists are entrepreneurs. But there was something you said, not only am I an entrepreneur as an artist, I'm the product. So I wanted you to kind of go deeper into that statement.
Well, more exactly what I said, and it was taken from a quote, a Jay-Z quote. He may have used it more than once. I know that he used it in the Diamonds Are Forever remix with Kanye, and the line was, "I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. Let me handle my business, man."
Yeah.
And so I took the quote a step further in saying, not only am I a business, but I am my own product. And see, and a lot of times, even as an entrepreneur, we sometimes need a product, whether it be selling insurance or selling vacuum cleaners door to door. Sometimes as an entrepreneur, we need a product. But as an entertainer, and I'm going to take it even a step further, I think it is very important, no matter what your product is, but more specifically, if you think of your own self as your product. For example, even if if I'm writing a song that I'm selling, or even my voice being featured with the many producers that I work with, or features that I've done with many artists, they're not necessarily when I sell or when I write a Tony Williams hook for an artist, what I'm selling is not necessarily, and it's not limited to what I write, but I'm selling my personality. I'm selling myself. I am always the product. Another example, my wife and I operate a vintage clothing store in Dallas, Texas. And my clients and the added benefit to shopping at our stores that we're both very highly skilled stylists. And so when those customers come there, they love the experience they get, the hands-on experience and expertise that they're buying, and that they love is not the clothes that they leave with, but what they left with was they bought me. So even the clothes that I stock is an extension or a representation of myself, of my personality. So it's always me that I'm selling, whether it's a record, whether it's a song I'm writing, whether it's a clothes or whatever. What I'm selling and what I'm marketing is my personality. It's myself, and that's what I'm branding, and that's what people come accustomed to buying.
That's real. The personal brand. That's what it is at the end of the day.
Right.
So I want to jump into another question real quick. And what have been your biggest challenges or setbacks as both an artist and an entrepreneur?
Wow.
I think people always want to talk about the good things, all the beautiful things that happen, all the wins, but people very rarely share the setbacks, which is a big part of what being an entrepreneur is.
Well, probably, I'm a self-proclaimed. It's very interesting because people are always, they look at, and probably in a lot of people, I think the biggest misconception, especially with entertainers, is we see it's so much. I'll go on record as saying I think so much of it is such an illusion, if you will. It's show business. And so we see somebody on a video and we think they've achieved this huge measure of success. And then a lot of people, and not to say that I haven't amassed a level of success that most people would desire to have, but I'm a self-proclaimed underachiever, actually. But I'm basically I'm still writing my chapters. I'm still writing my book. I've still not reached that status that I'm shooting for. So a lot of people say, you're so successful. How did you get to that level? I'm like, I'm always saying, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. And to answer your question, what was the question? Challenge?
What's the biggest challenges or setbacks that you've had both as an artist and entrepreneur?
Yeah. The biggest setback is just staying motivated and staying driven. And a lot of it, not to brag, but I feel like, and a lot of times when you have talents in so many areas, sometimes you can be very divided. You just get slow, you kind of jump over to this thing, you do a little bit of that. Or sometimes just, not just being driven. For example, you have to be very mindful when you are your product and your own boss to dedicate it as, of course, it's your thing to put as much energy as you want to. But it's just I think some people, probably my biggest flaw is just, I'm driven by happiness. Some people are money driven. They'll work, until their fingernails are bleeding and basically, I'm not motivated. I'm not wired like that. I do as much as I need to do to make me happy, and I work at my own pace. And so I have ebbs and flows, and I probably, like I said, I'm a self-proclaimed underachiever, but I live a really satisfying and happy life. So it's all good. So if I were to say there were a challenge, it would be motivation and to stay driven and a little more.
And question that I have, kind of piggybacking off of Jennifer's, is what has been one of your greatest rewards as an artist and as an entrepreneur?
Greatest rewards is reward itself, which is, anything. I think as a creative, I think it's more of just even an entrepreneur and an entertainer, but just as a creative, period. Just the idea of seeing something from conception to finish. I tell you, I have so many irons in the place. I didn't mention our clothing business before. While we were actually we operated mid-century antique furniture operation where we actually, and because I grew up, our family business when I grew up, my granddad, who I share with Kanye. Our mutual grandfather was a self-made businessman in Oklahoma City, and our business was furniture refinishing and upholstery. And he was a very successful businessman. And so it was something that I kind of picked up as I grew up in the shop. And I still like, and so contrary to I shouldn't say a lot of people's belief, but as an entertainer, I actually love working with my hands. And so even if it's with my hands or if it's writing a song, I think the biggest reward is just seeing something to finish, writing a song and actually hearing it on the radio. And then, you know, all of the platinum records and the Grammys that come along with it is and that list goes on. I just think as a creative, it's the reward is just the process, seeing something from finish to end. I hope I answered your question, but it's
no,
very simple. Very simple.
I mean, God knows me and Mario, we've spent a lot of years doing a lot of passion projects, things that we just believe in. I mean, there's so many other paths that you can take that are just guaranteed, but I mean, I think that'll resonate with anybody. You want to do what you love, you know? I
remember when I first moved back from, I was talking about when I was living in LA as a college student. This was many years ago.
Yeah.
The first time, because I was born and raised in Oklahoma City, and I left college and moved to LA, and I've been back and forth. I'm actually in LA right now, but I've been back and forth. But I remember when I moved back after about the first 5 years of 5 years of living in LA, during that time, I had a cousin that was a manufacturer in LA. This was back when the, oh God, how do you call it? The big fat, oh God. Anyway, he had a manufacturer.
Oh, let's finish that. The big fat what? Let's figure it out.
No, the guy's got a big name, Dapper Dan. Dapper Dan,
okay, yeah.
Now he's not my cousin, but there a version of Dapper Dan and what Dapper Dan was doing in the 80s when he was knocking off the high-end Gucci, you know, all those and turned them into streetwear, you know. I had a cousin that was doing that in LA, and all the West Coast rappers from Ice Cube to all the West Coast rappers in the 80s were wearing, you see them in the videos, they were wearing his clothes. Uh-huh. And so I remember when I moved back, I took a $500 investment and started making orders from him, and I would pack up my hatchback and I would set up a table on the street. And this is when street vending in the early 80s was really not even, it was just becoming a thing.
Yeah.
And I remember that $500, 4 boxes of clothes in the back of my hatchback turned into just like, that was like my first business.
Mm-hmm.
And so just to be able to see something grow from just like a very small investment, that's the reward for me, even on a small scale like that. And I've been doing it for a very long time. Yeah. So I had a very, very early entry into entrepreneurship as a 23-year-old actually. And seeing those early successes, and it still is a thrill to me to take $10 and turn it into $100.
It feels good, right? Making it on your own too, versus like getting it through a company. It's a different kind of feeling, right?
Companies never understood me. They didn't get us creatives back then. This was before the techies. They kind of creative people are accepted now. They didn't have a play. They didn't know what to do with me. And the mailroom wasn't gonna work for me because I knew I had genius ideas. I didn't know where my place was.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's cool.
And that was prior to, I love discussions like this, and I always set a demarcation line between pre-internet and post-internet. And things were so different back then, and it was so, access to the marketplace was so much tougher back then. If you wanted to sell products, you couldn't, you had to have a room and a space for inventory. It just wasn't what we have access to in the digital age. Now it was a totally different age and much harder, harder thing. The entrepreneurship was much harder. Very few opportunities in that era. So
I was thinking the same thing. When I looked at the Madam C.J. Walker, I said, this woman was a hustler. To be a millionaire in that time frame, no internet, all these racial tension and everything, I said, I tip my hat. Because
no internet.
no internet.
A lot of people
No
out here
internet.
don't remember no internet. It was just a few years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, now you don't even service anything. I mean, you create a product, you private label it, you drop ship it, you don't have any
drop ship it.
expenses,
You don't have
to store it.
inventory.
Exactly.
You don't even have to warehouse it.
Right.
Exactly.
It's kind of like the phone. You know, I can't think of life without a cell phone. You know, back in the day, I came from the era with the pagers. I'm like, man, that seems kind of weird.
Well, I'm way before pagers. Way before pagers. Like,
some people still have house phones. I don't even know what that is.
Exactly.
They don't know what it is.
Right.
Right.
So I know you made the statement where you kind of prefaced the being an underachiever, but I mean, what was the moment when you felt like you finally achieved success? Because I think maybe that's based on your standards, but by other people's standards, I think people would say that you've achieved success.
I haven't achieved it. I haven't achieved it. Someone asked me just a couple of weeks ago, surely you're writing a book. Actually, I have the makings for a couple of books.
Yeah.
A couple of books. However, I don't feel like the books, I don't think that they're complete yet. I'm still writing the story. So, you know, I think especially with entertainment, I think it's so much of an illusion, and people see you on a couple of records, and some people may consider, and not that I've only been on a couple of records, you know, I've had a great career, but I still feel like I'm probably the not oldest, but longest standing new artist in history. Like I'm still like I've been like a new artist for 15 years. Like, so no, yeah, and I'm still a new artist. So yeah, I don't feel like I've achieved success yet.
It's funny when you can say something like that. When I think of like one of my favorite songs was the We Major with Nas and Kanye and your vocals on that, and how that's a classic. But it's funny how everybody kind of,
have you heard me on the latest Nas album, on Nasir? Did you hear that record?
I haven't. I need to hear it.
Oh my God. Yeah, I did a record on Nas's last album called Bonjour. It's just like me, just like a duet, like he and I.
I'm gonna listen to it after this. Like,
come on, Jen.
I know I'm slipping, but I know which ones I like. I know I got my songs I like. Yeah.
But yeah.
So random question. So imagine you have the opportunity to be on a big billboard. I guess now electronic billboard or whatever. What would it be? What would you have on it, and why? If you had the opportunity to be on a billboard, what would you put on it and why?
What would I put on the billboard and why?
Drum roll.
What's that? Yeah. Well, the low-hanging fruit would be my new project that's about to come out.
Yeah.
But I feel like you're fishing for something a little deeper than that, because honestly, and I don't know how to put this into a succinct phrase, but and a very good question, because I work with I do a lot of artist development. I have on a professional, level, and even as far as just mentoring young musicians on the daily, and and I'm constantly reviewing new projects, new music. And what I get is a lot of the same old rehash stuff. And my question to them is always, what is it about you that makes me, amongst the pantheon of all the other music that's released on a daily basis, what would make me go and pick yours out of the whole bunch? And a lot of times it's an aha moment, like, I never thought that, because most people that I find are imitating what they hear and emulating and guessing what people want to hear. And I've never really been that artist. I'm the artist that because I believe in myself that I am a very unique person. I believe that there's only one of me, and that no one else sees the world like I see it. And so therefore, when I put a product together, when I give you an experience, when I put a song together, my goal is to convert, and the challenge becomes because when you look at music, every story that we can think of to write has already been told time and time again. So it becomes my challenge to rewrite the story in a way that it's never been told before. And so I have prided myself in developing that skill set over many years. So I feel like, and I know I'm all over the place, but I'm going to come full circle and answer the question. You know, I want to take the conversation to Kanye, in that even I, in interviews, have been asked, do you prefer the old Kanye or the new Kanye? And to answer that question, this is a man that has been an artist. There are probably, I don't know, you could probably count on two hands, if not one, musical artists that have longevity that has lasted longer than 10 years, that are still currently working. Very few. And the key to doing that is to constantly evolve and to constantly reinvent yourself. Because there's lots of artists that I could say, oh, that's my artist, and I'm on them for 2 or 3 albums, and then they stay the same, and I'm done. You know, and I won't mention those artists. And that's your thing, if you want to, you know, but I'm a person that's constantly, I feel like I have enough in me that I can constantly show various facets and iterations of myself. As a matter of fact, if you ever listen to one of my complete projects, one of the first things that will come to mind is that I basically reinvent myself every song. Not only from album to album, but by the time you get to the third song, you're like, is this the same person that was on the first song? You know, but I feel like I have that much inside of me, that much creativity. I'm not unidimensional. I'm not a one-trick pony. I've got a lot. I draw on lots of different ideas and concepts and types of music. Because that's what I studied. I didn't just study. I know, like a lot of kids today that are hit, they're very one-dimensional. They listen to one type of music, and that's as wide as they can go. But when you grew up, once again, before that line of demarcation, before internet, before the music industry was so youth-driven, as a child, you know, we listened to what our parents listened to, which was really quality music. We weren't listening we weren't in the car. Our parents weren't playing trap. They were playing Earth, Wind and Fire, Al Jarreau. You know, it was music with depth. And so my listening, the things that I'm drawing on as a musician is very widespread. It's everything from gospel to blues to jazz it's all over the place. And so I'm constantly still drawing on all of that. So back to the billboard. If I could put that into words, you know, it would be something to, it would probably say the world famous Tony Williams, expect not to, what is the saying? Expect not to expect, or how's the saying going? You know, but the basis of it is just expect not to. You never know whatever it is. I think you know where you're going to get. Yeah. And so if I could put that into words, which I didn't do a very good job of.
No, we get the overall idea.
That's what we're going to billboard. I tell long stories.
Oh, I love it. I'm long-winded, so I have to watch myself because I'm long-winded. But I like what you said, because you know how you said like you create different iterations of yourself. Yeah, different. If you look at every brand that's successful, is always innovating, and they're always changing their strategy. I always think of a case study from a marketing perspective, because remember Blockbuster. If you remember back in the days in the 80s and everything, Blockbuster was it, right?
I was just using that example just 2 days ago.
Yeah.
The same exact example.
Yeah.
When times change, you got to come at them a different way.
Exactly. And they were warned. They told them, hey, Netflix is coming. Redbox is coming. People are changing the way that they see movies. But Blockbuster was a powerhouse, and they didn't take it serious. They were like, we're Blockbuster. And then now kids don't even know what a Blockbuster is now. And now
Right.
Netflix is as big as any other network or any other powerhouse, you know, content provider. So it's
By the
crazy.
time they pivoted, it was too late.
Yeah. Way too late.
Just using that example 2 days ago. Great example. Great minds think alike.
So I guess, I mean, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but just so we can go a little deeper, what are some current projects that you're working on? I know you talked about the vintage store. Musically, what are some things you're working on, or any other endeavors you're working on?
Yeah, man, doing a lot of things musically. As a matter of fact, wow. So I think fourth quarter last year, like November, I signed a new record deal that I'm very excited about. I may have alluded to, but at my core, I'm a songwriter. I'm an artist, singer, producer, but I'm a songwriter at my core. And the label that I signed with is based out of Nashville, which is totally different than the LA entertainment market. It's night and day. But it has put me in a place where, you know, we're writing in a certain type of writing is very coveted. Just a few weeks ago, I worked on, so it's put me in positions where I'm working with different varieties, doing a lot of even working with country artists, especially being in Nashville, CCM, contemporary Christian, a lot of pop artists. I just did a record with some of my label mates for King and Country. They just got a Grammy for the best contemporary Christian album and song this past February. And the day after the Grammys, I was in the studio with them. I did 2 records with them. They released the first one about 3 weeks ago, a song called Together. It featured Kirk Franklin and Tori Kelly. And I actually worked on the album. I did some arranging and I directed the choir parts on the album. Song went #1 the first week on the Christian charts. And the next single that they're putting out, I'm actually singing on, and I wrote about 80% of the song. So that's just about an example of some of the things that I'm doing. My own project is about to roll out. My last album, or mainstream album, was King of the Fool and Opera Volume 1. That was 2012. I've only released 1 mixtape in the meantime. But Volume 2, it actually has been ready for some time. And we would have been putting singles out had it not been for the pandemic. But we're just kind of positioning, and it's kind of examining the new landscape of what music and putting out music and touring and all the peripherals that come along with putting out a music, what it's going to look like. And so I'll have new music rolling out very soon, very, very soon. I'm looking
Don't
forward
forget about
to
those 2 books you got coming out.
What's that?
Well, don't forget about those books you mentioned earlier.
Oh man, we got time for those books, man. We still writing that stuff.
Right.
We still every day is still a new chapter. Every day is still a new chapter.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to be the expert on this part, since you mentor a lot of upcoming artists and business people in general, and your upbringing. So what kind of advice would you give aspiring entrepreneurs and business owners? So a new entrepreneur is trying to get into whatever business that they're trying to get into, business owner. What kind of advice would you give them?
Very basic, man. I think I kind of alluded, man. Just be passionate about it. Case in point, I have a really close friend, and I'm gonna go out and wax very country right now. But there are people. I'm from the Midwest, Southwest. And I have a friend of mine. Having grown up in not rural America, I grew up in the city, in Oklahoma City, but I'm an avid outdoorsman, fishing and hunting. And I have a really good friend that he lives to fish and hunt. And he loved it so much that, just an example, he's fresh on my mind. I was just having a conversation with him, but he has started a very successful a guide business where he takes out clients and takes them on hunting and fishing trips. But that just came to my mind because that is something that he was doing for free. In fact, not only was he doing it for free, just like myself, when I said I used to do music not only did I do music for free in the beginning, I used to pay. Because in the early days, when I first started doing music, when I started putting my own bands together, I would go out and I could book gigs that would only pay me enough money to pay the guys in the band. And it was probably years before I was able to pay myself anything. So it was actually costing me. A lot of times I was even going in my pocket on and above, whatever the cut I was getting off the door in the bar, just starting off. This is, many years ago. But I was so passionate about it that I would literally pay to be able to perform in front of a crowd. So, as basic as that sound, man, just what is it that you love doing and figure out how to make money off of it? I feel like you're looking for something a little more profound, but
no, that's great. No, that's because it's kind of that passion that keeps you going. A lot of even me, my background is in web development and videography, and I've done so many free shoots and I've done so many free websites, and I look back.
Well, hey, well, see, I got some projects over here I'm trying to get finished, man.
Right here.
No, I'm kidding. But no, I get, and very case in point, I was working with a young artist, not a young artist, mentoring or had brought them in the studio to do a session. I needed some background parts. And I was like, just go ahead and just kind of just see. And so when I got the invoice back, for what their fee was going to be for having had worked on the project, which I gladly paid, but with a bit of advice. And some of that advice was what I would have done in this position, because understanding how valuable for a young artist to actually be in a recording session with me with years of experience and having front row access to watch my process. I remember, man, early on to be in the studio with Pharrell or, a lot of different producers that I would be around. It would be like, man, can I just fix the coffee to be in the room? And then if you need me to sing a few notes, I got you. But for me, it was about, I would have paid to been in some of those sessions. And, these, and you don't know that sometimes without mentorship. And so those are some of the things that I share with even young artists. It's like, man, you got to sew into that position. Sometimes mentorship is everything. And I think a lot of times we don't value that. And sometimes we're not taught that, especially as young Black business people or entertainers. But yeah, I would have paid for a lot of the rooms that I was in as an early musician. I would have gladly paid for the opportunity to have been in some of the rooms that I had the opportunity to be in.
I agree 100%. I think Instagram and social media makes everybody feel like, oh, I want to be a hustler, I want to be a business owner, and they want to tax from the jump. But you got to pay dues. You can't come out the gate. I mean, we've paid dues. We've done so much stuff, and free is not a bad thing as long as it's strategic. Like you said, I would have made coffee to be in those rooms, but what kind of valuable experience are you going to get in that room that you wouldn't get in just any old room?
Yeah,
so
we don't.
Yeah,
we don't put value on that. I get it's so funny. I get, even in my DMs, I get the DM, man. I just put my mixtape out. Could you please? I want you to listen to that and then hit me back and let me know what you think. Where and it's whereas even as an artist, if I were to put up a post that said, hey, I'm reviewing projects, it's going to cost you $300, and then I'll do a Skype with you to critique it for, if I were to do that, I would assure you that my takers would be few. And I just think that we don't value enough as mentorship. I have another really close family couple that are extremely successful, self-made millionaires in business. But they also started off with a couple of business failures. And we were having a conversation recently, and they were saying, it's just mind-blowing that of all the friends that we know, even personally, that go out and start ventures, never once call us and ask us, would you look at this business plan and tell us what you think about it? And I can go back to myself. I am proximity to so many young musicians. You just saw me performing with 150 voice choir. I'm not going to put nobody under the bus, but there's so many people that have me as a resource that they go and put out projects and never one time think to ask, would you listen to this and tell me, you know, people that I know. Now, people that I don't know will hit me and say, listen to this, you know, but people that I have an investment in, a personal relationship that I would gladly do for free. You know, it blows my mind, the amount of people that even ask, that have me as a resource, that never even think to ask. It's mind blowing.
Isn't it funny though how like a random stranger will jump in your DM and say, "Hey, review this," and then the person I just perform with don't say anything. That's crazy.
Mind blowing.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So, you know, keeping in the vein of how our discussion has been going, what's a risk you have taken in your career that initially scared you but paid off tremendously? Because you know they always say there's no reward without risk. So what's a risk you took where you were like, shit, you were scared, but it worked out?
I can't say I've had very many. I can't. If I were, I tell you, jack of all trades, master of a couple. But prior to me going out as a full-time musician, 2005, 2006, that was after the Late Registration album, Touch the Sky tour was when I first started actually touring full-time. 14 years prior to that, a lot of people don't know, I'm a creative, but I was a hairstylist in Dallas, Texas.
I didn't know that.
Very successful.
Yeah.
Very successful. And so I can remember going to, I think probably my wife was pregnant at the time with our third child when I stopped working to go to cosmetology school. Pregnant wife, and she was working full time carrying the whole family. But it did pay off, but it was very risky. But yeah, I'd have to say that. Yeah, taking 9 months out of my life to go to cosmetology school probably was the biggest risk. So once again, investment.
Yeah.
You know.
But you're happy you did it now because we're in the middle of Corona and who don't have to go get their haircut?
Well, you can believe I'm not doing nobody's hair right now. It's not a pad. I can do it now.
I mean, in the house, in the same house as you, though.
There you go. There you go.
No outside business. You know.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you might have already offered this in a previous question that I asked, but crucial piece of advice to entrepreneurs or aspiring artists, what would it be? You know, if you give someone one advice, what would it be?
Yeah. I'm probably not going to wax extremely profound. Once again, really basic, but very important. Know your strengths and weaknesses. And so, you know, focus on your strengths, hone your weaknesses. And that was very important for me. I was very, you know, it's kind of like, go back to the Kanye story. He started making beats because he needed beats for himself to rap on, but nobody took him serious as a rapper. And it's funny because I didn't know him at the time. He actually was, and he'll admit, he actually was not a good rapper at that time, but he didn't, you know, he wouldn't have let you know it. But, you know, he's like, no, I'm a rapper. And they're like, you're an all right rapper. And he really was not really that good a rapper, but he sharpened that skill. And so, my ability to become a really skilled artist was because in the beginning I was a great writer, but I was only marginable as an actual vocalist. But I developed as a singer in the years since then. And so to make up for my deficiency, you know, I felt like because I couldn't, as we say, knock the ball out of the park with that high note, or with that Stevie run, you know, then I could write the song so colorful and so make my arrangements and my harmonies so lush and creative and different that it would offset my deficiency as a singer. So by myself understanding my strengths versus my weaknesses, I made myself a complete artist.
And you were consistent too, being consistent at it too, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah.
Love it. So before we wrap everything up, like, how can our listeners connect with you? What are your social handles? They're not going to slide in your DM. If you slide in the DM and you ask for advice, you can get charged $300 basically.
Hey.
That's a going rate.
I don't have an hour out of my day to listen to your mixtape.
Yeah.
No, but I think I'm Tony Williams on Instagram, and on my artist Facebook, I think is the world famous Tony Williams or TWF Tony Williams. And I think my Twitter, hold on, let me see. I'm either Tony Williams or TWF Tony Williams on Twitter.
Okay.
Yeah, but on everything. I'm either Tony Williams or the world famous Tony Williams or TWF Tony Williams. You'll find me.
Tony Williams somewhere, the world famous Tony Williams.
TWF,
Tony, you mentioned.
Do you have a website?
Yeah.
I do. That's a good question. I think it's the world famous Tony Williams, or it's either Tony Williams Music. Man, y'all.
Like Google is your best friend, right?
Man, there you go. Just Google. I do. Yeah. Google.
Can you drop the name of your vintage shop in Dallas so local Dallas representatives can go and support?
Space 137. It's located inside Lullaby's mid-century antique mall on Fort Worth Avenue in Dallas, and is also another location located inside Doc's Records in Fort Worth. Space 137.
Awesome. Well, yay!
There's also a Space 137 vintage website as well as Instagram.
Shout out to all these streams of income.
Right.
We got touring, we got vintage shops, but we calling ourselves underachievers. I don't believe you. But it's all good. Yeah. Tony, thank you for joining us for episode 5. We really appreciate it. Everybody go out and support. You know, the vintage shop, you know, the handles, follow, stay up. Tony's also in the Sunday service choir. We didn't really talk about that very much, but I know it's we're dealing with the Corona situation right now, but hey, if it comes to your city, please support it. And thank y'all very much. We'll see y'all in the next episode.
Had a great time. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.